Greetings, citizens, and thanks for tuning in to the return of Nindy Nation. I'm Jeff, and I have missed you all so very much. It's great to be back, but we've got a lot to cover, so if you want to chat, come join us on Discord and subscribe to keep up to date with all of the independently developed games coming to the Switch. Head on down to the comments and let me know which of the following games you're planning to pick up. And with that out of the way, let's kick off episode 185 of Nindy Nation by taking a look at the 9 notable new Nindies hitting the Nintendo Switch through Sunday, August 13th. Alright, let's start with something I'm not even remotely qualified to speak on: wrestling. After years of waiting, so many conventions, and a lot of hype over on the Nindy Nation Discord, you maniacs can finally get your hands on WrestleQuest when it drops by way of MegaCat Studios and Skybound Games for $29.99. And you know, even though it's based on a sport I've never really been into, the fact that WrestleQuest is a 16-bit RPG filled with references to a bunch of classic wrestlers I do know, it's hard not to be interested in this one. You start out as an amateur nobody who works their way to the top by training, learning, and competing in turn-based RPG matches. And it's got all the big personalities and interstitial drama that you're used to along the way. Of course, the superstar you play as is one of your own making, so if you want to mirror one of your favorites, or fulfill your WWE, AEW, or BRB LOL fantasy, you'll have all the tools at your disposal to do so. I can't wait to hear what all the wrestling fans think about this, so make sure to let me know once you can play it on August 8th. And then an interesting and gorgeous game that immediately makes me nervous that the Switch can handle it is Skamba Snowfall, which comes to the eShop on the 9th by Finnish studio Red Stage Entertainment and Plug-in Digital for $24.99. It follows the story of the indigenous Sami people whose life is disturbed after a disease begins to emanate from the nearby tar-burning pit. You play as Ailu, a young reindeer herder who finds a magical drum which you'll then use to solve puzzles and traverse obstacles as you explore the land in this story-driven adventure. But what if you were a little space dude who somehow got transported inside of a game of Tetris, you know?
I had $1 every time I heard that.
Well, that's kind of the pitch behind Andrew Morrish's Unidentified Falling Objects. It's a puzzle platformer, but your goal is indeed to set up chain combos and get all of the pieces to fall in the right place. You'll shoot enemies and obstacles while hopping around the screen to kick pieces into place, and as you progress, you'll unlock various upgrades to help you move faster, jump higher, and shoot, harder? The music sounds great, the visuals are super charming, and with a mix of characters to play as and multiplayer on tap, $14.99 seems like a great asking price for this independently developed game that is published by
Gearbox Software.
Okay, now hopefully I don't write, record, and gush about this next game for a couple of minutes just to find out that it was delayed, because while there's no eShop page up right now, Battery Staple Games has been very clear that one of my favorite games over the past 2 years is coming to the Switch on August 9th. That's right, citizens, get hyped because 30XX is everything I wanted from this sequel. Let's back up. In 2018, a young, energetic little Uncle Nindy had just started a YouTube channel covering indie games for the Switch, and there were 2 games that inspired the whole notion of finding smaller games to put in the limelight. One was Skyforce Reloaded, and the other was 20XX. 20XX was billed as an endlessly replayable take on Mega Man X, which means procedurally generated levels, roguelike mechanics, and RPG elements! In other words, you'd play through running, jumping, shooting, wall jumping, gaining abilities, and all the rest, and then when you die, you start over but with a bit more power and a few new things to unlock in your next run. Now fast forward to, well, now, and I've been playing the sequel on Steam Early Access since its release in February of 2021. In fact, we've done 2 streams about it if you want to check those out. Now we've got even more characters, with Nina being Mega Man, Ace playing like Zero with a sword, and then new characters to come with future DLC, in addition to more of everything else. More levels, more weapons, more abilities, more enemies, and an even cooler soundtrack. And now we've got full co-op, options to play a traditional Mega Man-like experience or the roguelike mode with permanent progression, and if that wasn't enough, there's a whole freaking level builder with a huge active community. Do I need to say anything else? This game is awesome. I love the original, I've played over 60 hours of the sequel, and I will gladly throw $25 at my Switch as fast as humanly possible to play 30XX when it releases this week. By the way, if you're wondering why Nindy Nation decided to come back this week, well, a big reason is because I didn't want to miss my chance to tell all of you, go play 30XX! And then next up from the category of
people who grew up in the 90s and are now making the games they loved from their childhood because nobody else will make them
is Legend Bowl, which, if you're the target audience, you probably already know exactly what this is an homage to. Super Pixel Games is a small team based in Florida who's partnering with Top Hat Studios to release this Tecmo Bowl throwback for $24.99. And as of now at least, all signs point to this game delivering on its promise of modernizing the legendary football game. Of course, without the NFL license, the teams will get as close as they can without using their real names, but with full player customization, if you really want to, you could just name the teams and players whatever you want. Plus, the way they expanded the whole formula here is great. Alongside the pixelated graphics, you've got a game that leans a bit further into the arcadey gameplay of something like NFL Blitz. But then if you jump into the season mode, you can go a lot deeper in the simulation aspect than any of the other games in this genre. It's got 4-player couch co-op, but unfortunately no online multiplayer, which is a bummer. But if that doesn't bother you, and you like what you see here, Legend Bowl is probably going to be right up your alley. Moving on to Thursday the 10th, we kick things off with two very similar games that I'm struggling to pick between, so let me know which one stands out more to you. First up is Neon Blight, a cyberpunk twin-stick shooter made by Bleeding Tapes, a solo developer based in Montreal. There's definitely a lot of inspiration from Enter the Gungeon here, with bullet hell bosses, dodge rolls, and more insane weaponry than you could ever need, but what sets this one apart as you play through the story to track down some kind of ultimate weapon, when you're not out on your combat run, you manage a weapon shop that looks similar but maybe even a bit deeper than what we saw in Moonlighter, which is cool because I'm always surprised to see that more games have yet to copy that mechanic of action RPG meets shopkeeper, you know? You can also make friends and build relationships with customers who will grant you perks and offer side quests, which is a nice perk to encourage exploring this part of the game. A bit of warning though, that the game, which launched on Steam last summer, has pretty mixed reviews. But from what I can tell, all of the negativity stems from a rocky PC launch, again a year ago, so hopefully the last year has allowed plenty of time to patch things up. It's published by Freedom Games, who are usually pretty solid with their releases on the Switch, so if reviews come out and the coast seems clear, I plan to check this one out when it releases for $19.99. Maybe. But if you're looking for some top-down action that doesn't take itself nearly as seriously and focuses on more traditional action than it does story development or roguelike elements, you might be interested in Zombie Soup.
Yummy!
It's developed by Aeon Sparks Interactive, a fairly new developer out of Malaysia who has partnered with Astrolab Games, whose release of Fist, Forged in Shadow Torch, was one of my favorite games last year. Also dropping for $19.99, Zombie Soup looks a bit lower budget, but I might actually like the presentation here more than Neon Blight. You play as a kid who just graduated from high school and has returned home to find his town in the midst of a zombie uprising. Beyond that, they also tout a ridiculous amount of weaponry to play with, including a nice mix of melee weapons, so you can actually play this game as a twin-stick shooter or as a hack and slash, and I really like that approach. So which of these two top-down action games are tickling your fancy? Let me know down in the comments. And speaking of down in the comments, let me know if you recall a time in life where the computer lab meant blowing through your basic assignment as fast as possible so you could get just a few minutes on the Macintosh Classic to play Oregon Trail. Now, take Oregon Trail and instead of the colonial expansion of the mid-1800s, place it in the midst of a zombie apocalypse and you've got, well, Oregon Trail. Yes, you heard that right. As the developer The Men Who Wear Many Hats says on his website, he's a Chicago-based one-man game developer who made too much money off their first release, Oregon Trail Director's Cut, because this game seemed to set the world on fire a little bit when it originally released way back in 2015. And now it's making its way to the Switch for only $9.99. Reviews are sparse just because the game is so old, but they're all very positive, and there's a lot of fair warnings that what you're getting is literally a direct homage to Oregon Trail. Work your way across the country, hunt, set up camp, play little mini games, and try to make it to the opposite side, you know? I think it looks awesome, and I never knew it existed, so I'm all about checking this one out. Anyone else? And finally, last up this week, coming by way of SideQuest Studios and East Asia Soft, is an RPG that originally released way back in 2018 as Rainbow Skies finds its way to the eShop for $19.99. If you're into JRPGs, especially those in line with the tone and depth of Disgaea, this game should probably be on your radar. If you're not into any of those words I just mentioned, well, just probably disregard this one. Rainbow Skies is the sequel to the 2015 game Rainbow Moon, but the story has no continuity, so you can jump right in here. And what you'll find is a very solid mix of traditional JRPG mechanics and combat that is somewhere between turn-based and tactical, as you can position yourself on the battlefield freely, but actions take place on a grid. It's a very deep game, too, with monster training, mini-games, classes, and upgradable everything, and while I didn't play it to completion, I did put several hours into it back in 2018, and I really enjoyed what I played. So what do you think, citizens? Anything jumping out at you this week? I'm all over 30XX, and I'm in the mood for Neon Blight or Zombie Soup. I just can't decide which one yet. Though I will say, if you don't see anything this week, or you're pinching your eShop pennies, stay strong, my friends, because August is just getting started. Next week, we've got Vampire Survivors, Moving Out 2, Bomb Rush Cyberpunk, and a game called Die After Sunset that definitely has my attention. And there's even more must-have nindies dropping before the end of the month. It's a stacked few weeks. So stick around, sound off down in the comments, subscribe for more weekly dives into the new releases, and if you want to help us grow, liking this video and sharing it with others is the best way to do so. Thanks so much for hanging around during our hiatus, and here's to many more brand new episodes of Nindy Nation. Until next week, I'm Jeff. This has been Nindy Nation episode 185, and remember, no matter what type of game you're looking for, Nindy Nation will be right here to help you find just the thing to keep your Joy-Cons synced.